Hey, this is Aaron from Night Combat Solutions. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about the Armasight Vulcan line of dedicated night vision weapon sights. Now there's several different variations, more so than what I have here with me, but what I do have is the new 6X version that just recently was released, the 4.5X version, and then we've got the variable version that is, this particular one is 2.5X, and it comes with an optical doubler that allows you to run it as a 5X scope. You can also get a 3.5X version that allows you to run it with the doubler and get 7X out of it. So I'll start down here. Now all of these are going to have certain things in common. Obviously, if you look, all the controls are identical. All of them starting at the bottom have a dual throw lever mount that's finger adjustable. That doesn't require any tools, which is great. If you'll notice, if the mount looks similar to you, that's because it is. It uses the same mount as the PVS-12 Aguila, the PVS-4, and so on, some of the military mounts. So if for whatever reason you didn't like this particular mount, you could run a LaRue mount or an Arms mount, or any number of mounts out there that'll fit that same pattern. Chances are, though, you're probably going to like this mount better because it locks up solid, returns to zero as long as you're in the same cross slot, and it doesn't require tools to adjust. Now moving on up to the battery compartment, you'll notice once again that's the same on all these units. It's a watertight battery compartment, and it allows you to run a AA or a single CR123, and I really like that feature. It allows me to have battery compatibility across my gear. So you know, I prefer to run AA's if I can, just because they're cheaper. But a lot of times I've got gear that, say my lasers and my illuminators and my white lights all might run on CR123s, and I want to carry the same batteries for all my gear. So that's a pretty handy feature. Now the switch is also the same on all of them. You'll notice it's a lot like the COLR switch. Down is on, the middle is off, and up is standby. What the standby mode does for you is it allows you to run it with a wireless pressure switch that comes with the units. Now that's especially handy to me when I'm out using helmet-mounted nods, which is pretty much always, or a handheld thermal scanner. And I'm not going to leave my rifle scope on all the time. So what I'll do is I'll find, or detect rather, a potential target and then check it out through the night vision scope. Well, for that purpose, the unit doesn't have to be on at all times. I can leave it on standby and activate it only when necessary with the remote pressure switch. Your reticle brightness and your gain control are both on top, and you'll notice your focus is at the rear of the switch housing. Now, I don't want to compare these to any other scope on the civilian market, simply out of professionalism. You know, obviously I'm gonna pick the one that I like more, and it's really hard to be objective when you're saying one scope is better than the other, because rarely do you have several of them out on the same night under the same conditions, and it would be even lower chances that you're going to have identical tubes in all these units. So I'll refrain from doing that and comparing it to a competitor's unit or even another unit that I sell. But what I will do is kind of give you my background with dedicated scopes. To me, a dedicated night vision scope has to have certain features that are just really good to give it the edge over a clip-on. If the image quality isn't great, if it doesn't have some other positive attributes, then there's no reason to give up the versatility of a clip-on. Now, the benefit of a dedicated scope is that you've got less weight, your balance of the weapon is a little better because you don't have a clip-on out front, and you generally get a little bit better image than you would with a clip-on using an identical tube. So there are some advantages, but a dedicated scope has to be pretty good for me to want to use it. The scopes that I kind of compare all others to are the Raptor and the PVS-12, simply because I've got a 15-month deployment under my belt in Solder City in 07, where I was carrying around a Mark 12 Mod 1 with an Aguila part at the time, and then later on a Raptor. And then again in Afghanistan I use both scopes periodically, but not as heavily. So just because those two are phenomenal scopes and I have a lot of time behind them, that's kind of what I judge all other scopes by. Now the downside of those two is they are extremely heavy. Sure, you could use them as a hammer or a bludgeoning device, but they are just a lot heavier than a guy like me wants to carry around, especially for hunting purposes. So that's kind of where I feel like the Vulcan comes in. It's extremely lightweight compared to the mil-spec versions, but it's still rugged. You don't give up any durability so much, since it's waterproof, shockproof, and it meets the mil standard 810G requirements for durability. So it's still a robust unit, it's just not so heavy. Now you'll notice that the 2.5X version is tiny, and just for comparison's sake, here's a PVS 14. You'll notice that the 2.5X version is not a lot bigger, and that's kind of rare in the dedicated night vision scope world, simply because most dedicated night vision scopes are huge. Now 2.5X, I really actually like running it just like that because of the wide field of view. And less layers of glass for the light to have to travel through, but with the optical doubler that comes with it, it makes a great 5X scope as well, or if you're running the 3.5X base version, then 7X overall. So I really like that. Now the 4.5X, it's a really good balance of field of view versus magnification. It's pretty much perfect for the kind of hunting I do, where I might be in the woods, or I might end up sitting on the edge of a field, and I don't want to bring 6 different weapons with different platforms. So if something's up close, I'm pretty much always wearing helmet-mounted night vision with an IR laser on whatever weapon I'm carrying at the time. That'll allow me to engage targets that are in my face, or if I need to, I can still do it with this because it's not just overly done on magnification. So that's kind of a good balance for me for those that are in areas where most of your engagement distances are going to be quite a bit longer, or you're pretty adept at using that IR laser with your helmet mounted nods. The 6X version gives you quite a bit of magnification. You've got a little narrower field of view, but the picture quality at a distance is just great on the 6X Vulcan, as it is with all of them. But probably the best feature of all of them, as far as I'm concerned, and once again this is subjective, but one of the things I hate the most in life are those little nickel slot turrets that you find on a lot of night vision units. And then on the opposite end of that spectrum, some of the 6X mil-spec sights have turrets that stick up extremely high. And that's fine, but I have had a move in the dark. It was my fault for not paying attention to what I was doing, but it's still an issue. So the Vulcan kind of went right in the middle of that with short capped turrets that are protected, but they're still finger adjustable, and they've got really nice crisp tactile clicks. Now I haven't wrung it out at extreme distances yet to know if it's returning to 0 after moving several mils, but at 100 yards doing a simple box test, and then dialing up about 6 inches and then back down, it did hold 0 perfectly well. And that's not an all-inclusive test, but it's given me a good idea that it is going to hold 0, even if I have to dial a little bit or adjusting it from one weapon to another. So that's one of the best features to me. You'll notice you've got your ocular focus back here on the rear. Your focus for distance is also on the rear of the switch box. I like that because it lets me adjust the focus while still having good control over the weapon while the scope is up to my eye. So basically, if you're looking for a lightweight, kind of a do-it-all night vision scope, the Vulcan's going to be really hard to beat. If you live in an area where you've got swamps or just not real long engagement distances, or you already have a unit that kind of covers those distances, but you want really lightweight and minimal space taken up, the 2.5X or 3.5X Vulcan is absolutely perfect, and it still is going to let you have a longer engagement distance. Now keep in mind that when you use the optical doubler, your point of impact is going to shift some. Now it should be pretty repeatable, but that's where your training is going to come in. Use the units before you have to use it in the field, so you don't run the risk of injuring something that doesn't deserve to be injured just because you didn't train. So take it out before you ever go out in the field and find your point of impact shift and try it a few times and make sure it's right on. The 4.5X and the 6X versions are extremely simple robust, and offer some really good longer range performance at night. So if you've got an area that isn't quite as tight at quarters, but you still want to be able to engage targets quickly, you might look at the 4.5x version. If you live in an area where you've got some distance to stretch out your night vision, check out the 6x version. But with any one of them, I guarantee you'll be happy. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions at all, please call me, email me, or even comment in the comment section below. Thanks.